I was 7 months pregnant, celebrating my baby shower, never thinking something so awful could happen. My own mother, yes, my mother, punched me so hard in my pregnant belly that I stumbled and fell into the pool. The water felt cold and heavy as I struggled to stay above it, gasping for air. Then suddenly, I looked down at my pregnant belly, and I started shaking with fear. Hello, my name is Lena, and I'm 30 years old. If someone had told me years ago that I'd be living in a peaceful Boston townhouse, married to a man who truly loves me, and carrying our first child, I would have laughed in disbelief. But here I am, 7 months pregnant, standing in front of my bedroom mirror, gently smoothing out the soft wrinkles in my loose maternity dress. I placed my hand over my belly and smiled as I felt a little flutter inside. Our baby boy, Jack, had been moving more these days. Sometimes it was a kick, other times just a slow, sweeping motion. Every movement reminded me that something beautiful was growing inside me. The sunlight poured through our window, and for a moment, everything felt still and right. Ryan, my husband, walked in with a warm cup of tea and kissed my cheek. For the Queen and the little prince, he teased with a grin. He had a way of calming me, even when my heart felt like it was tied in knots. Despite this moment of peace, I couldn't ignore the heaviness I felt deep down. The truth was, my mother, Janet, and my sister, Sophia, had always been a source of stress in my life. And now that my baby shower was just days away, their negativity was creeping back in like a shadow. I took a sip of the tea and sat on the edge of the bed. I had worked hard for this life, through college, through a tough career in real estate, through years of self-doubt that stemmed from growing up in a home where I was never enough. I had built something real and stable. I had love, safety, and now, hope. But deep down, I knew the peace wouldn't last for long. Not with Janet involved. I was folding baby clothes in the nursery when Ryan called out, "Lena, it's your mom on the phone." Just hearing those words sent a shiver down my spine. I froze for a second, then took a deep breath and walked into the hallway where Ryan held out the phone with a concerned look. I forced a smile and took it from him. "Hi, Mom." Her voice was sharp, direct, the way it always was when she wanted control. "Lena, I need to talk to you about your baby shower. Sophia and I have made some changes. We've moved the venue to the Bloomfield Club. It's more elegant than that little cafe you picked. I've already made the reservation." I shut my eyes and inhaled slowly. "Mom, I've already signed a contract with Riverside Cafe. My friends know the place. I'm paying for it myself." "Oh, please," she snapped. "I'll cover the cancellation fee. And while we're at it, the dress you chose looks like a curtain. Sophia found a lovely one for you, more refined, more graceful." I felt my stomach tighten. I was already 7 months pregnant. My body was changing, my emotions were on edge, and here she was, belittling everything I had planned for my own celebration. I looked over at Ryan, who was watching from the doorway. He stepped forward and gently placed his hand on my back. That warmth gave me the strength to speak. "Mom, Ryan and I have already made all the decisions. This is a special moment for us, and we want the shower to reflect that. We're keeping it the way it is." There was a pause on the other end. Then she exhaled sharply. "You're always like this. Never listening. Never thinking about how much pain Sophia is in. Do you have any idea what it's like for her, seeing you pregnant when she can't have children?" My throat tightened. I had tried for years to show compassion to my sister, but my pregnancy wasn't a crime. It wasn't meant to hurt anyone. "I'm not trying to hurt Sophia," I said quietly. "But this is a celebration. My celebration. For once." Her voice trembled with rage. "How selfish of you." Before I could respond, Ryan calmly took the phone from my hand. "Janet," he said firmly, "Lena needs rest. The baby shower will go on as planned. If you don't want to attend, that's your choice." And just like that, he hung up. I sat down on the couch, shaking. Tears welled up in my eyes. Why can't she just be happy for me? Ryan sat beside me and pulled me into his arms. "Because her love comes with conditions. But mine never will." Later that evening, my father, Frank, called. His voice was gentle, almost apologetic as always. "Lena, I'm sorry about your mother. She's just concerned about you, that's all. I gave a hollow laugh. Dad, you've been saying that since I was 12. It's not concern. It's control. There was silence on the other end. Then he spoke softly. I'll be at the shower. I'll bring your mother and Sophia too. Just try not to worry. Maybe this time will be different. But I knew better. The morning of the baby shower arrived with sunlight streaming through our bedroom windows. Birds chirped outside, and for a moment, it felt like a perfect spring day. But beneath the calm surface, I was nervous. Not about the guests. Not about the food or decorations. But about what might happen if my mother and sister showed up. Ryan came in holding my shoes and smiled. How's my favorite mom-to-be feeling? Nervous, I admitted as I placed a hand on my rounded belly. I just want this day to go well. For once, I want to feel like I belong in my own life. He knelt in front of me and helped me put on my shoes. You do belong, Lena. This is your moment. And no matter what happens, I'll be right beside you. He kissed my hand and helped me to my feet. I felt the baby shift gently inside me, as if reminding me, I'm here too, Mom. By noon, we arrived at Riverside Cafe, which had been transformed into a soft wonderland of blue ribbons, pastel balloons, and floral centerpieces. The outdoor terrace overlooked a sparkling pool, with sunlight dancing on the water. My best friend Olivia, who had organized everything, greeted me with a tight hug. You look beautiful, she whispered. Everything's ready. All you have to do is breathe and enjoy it. I tried to smile. I'm trying, Liv. Really. As guests started arriving, I began to relax. My coworkers from the real estate office came with gifts wrapped in shades of blue and white. Old college friends laughed as they admired the setup. For the first time in weeks, I felt normal. Ryan stayed close, watching me closely. He leaned in and whispered, You okay? I nodded. Just if Mom and Sophia show up, promise you'll let me know right away? He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. If anything goes wrong, I'll handle it. I promise. Just as I was beginning to let my guard down, a hush fell over the entrance. I turned, and there they were. Janet, my mother, strutted in like she was the guest of honor. She wore a blazing red dress that sparkled in the light, completely inappropriate for a baby shower. Her head was high, her face expressionless. Frank, my father, followed behind in his usual quiet demeanor, shoulders slightly hunched. And then came Sophia, my sister, wearing a tight black dress, clearly meant to show off how slim she was. Her hair was perfectly curled. Her eyes locked with mine, and she gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Congratulations, Lena, she said sweetly. It's so like you to throw a party in such a casual place. I forced a smile. Thank you for coming, Sophia. And,
Mom.
Dad. Janet gave me a cold look, scanning me from head to toe. Her voice was low but sharp. Couldn't you have chosen a bigger dress? That belly is overwhelming. I swallowed hard.
Mom.
It's a maternity dress. I am pregnant. Well, obviously, she said loudly, drawing glances from the other guests. You've always loved being the center of attention. Before I could respond, Olivia stepped in like a shield, her voice calm but clear. Mr. and Mrs. Harris, Sophia, welcome. Can I get you something to drink? Saved again by Olivia's grace. Ryan came to my side and gently wrapped his arm around me. You okay? He whispered. I nodded, but my fingers trembled slightly. Let's just get through this, I said. On the surface, the party continued smoothly. Guests mingled. Gifts were placed on the table. But in the corner of the terrace, Janet drank glass after glass of champagne, her eyes fixed on me like a hawk. Sophia smiled and chatted with my friends, but something in her manner felt fake, calculated. She was telling one of my coworkers, Lena's always been the nurturing type. I've always focused more on my career. I clenched my teeth. That was a lie. Sophia had always dreamed of having a family, but life hadn't worked out for her, and now I was the one being punished for it. Still, I stayed calm, because I knew this storm wasn't over yet. I tried to focus on the decorations Olivia had worked so hard on. The soft blue and white theme matched the little baby onesies that hung like garlands above the tables. A soft breeze moved through the terrace, and laughter echoed in the background. But I could still feel Janet's stare drilling into my back like a cold needle. Each time I turned slightly, she was watching me, her champagne glass refilled, her mouth tight. And Sophia, oh, she was playing the part well. Smiling too wide, laughing a little too loud, and inserting herself into conversations with my coworkers like she belonged there. She approached my friend Jennifer and began talking about our childhood. Lena always had her nose in a book. So serious. I was the more lively one, she giggled. She's changed so much, though. Ever since she met Ryan, she's become different. Jennifer offered a polite smile, but I could see her glancing toward me for help. I walked over and joined them, placing a hand lightly on Jennifer's arm. "Excuse me, Jen. Can I borrow you for a second?" She gave Sophia a polite nod and quickly followed me toward the drinks table. "She's intense," Jennifer whispered once we were alone. "You have no idea," I replied with a tight smile. Meanwhile, Janet was on her third glass of champagne. Her eyes were glazed, and her voice was starting to rise. She laughed too loudly at something Frank said, and then shook off his hand when he tried to calm her. "She's starting to lose it," Olivia whispered to me as she passed by. "Be careful." I nodded. I knew that look in my mother's eyes. I'd seen it too many times before. Moments later, Olivia gathered everyone and clapped her hands. "Okay, everyone, let's play a game. It's called Advice for the Mother-to-Be. Each of you wrote a parenting tip, and Lena will try to guess who said it." Guests laughed and gathered around. For a moment, I smiled and leaned into Ryan's shoulder as I picked up the first card. But I didn't even get to read it before Janet stood up, swaying slightly. Her voice rang out through the group. "I have some advice, too." The laughter died instantly. "Children are born to punish their parents," she said, raising her glass. "Isn't that right, Lena?" The room fell completely silent. My heart pounded in my ears. Ryan stood up beside me. "Mrs. Harris," he said in a firm voice, "maybe now isn't the best time." Janet turned toward him, ignoring his calm tone. "Oh, hush. You're the one who's ruined everything. Is that baby even yours?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. My knees went weak. "What?" I whispered, stunned. Janet laughed, her voice slurring. "You always had to be the star, didn't you, Lena? Since you were little. Always pushing Sophia into the shadows. Now you're showing off like this, while she can't even have children." Sophia walked up behind her mother and whispered something in her ear, something I couldn't hear. Janet's face twisted with even more anger. "I'm tired of pretending," she spat. "This family has always revolved around your drama." Frank stood up from his chair, his face pale. "Janet, that's enough." But she wouldn't stop. Ryan stepped between us again. "Stop this, or I'll call security." That's when Janet snapped. She shoved Ryan aside and stormed toward me. Her eyes were wild, drunken, furious, and completely unhinged. "You should never have been born," she screamed. Then, with all the force in her body, she punched me right in the stomach. The air rushed out of my lungs. I stumbled backward, gasping, my hands flying to my belly. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The pain was instant, hot and sharp, and the next thing I knew, my foot slipped at the edge of the pool, and I fell. 7 months pregnant, soaking wet, dizzy and panicking, I sank into the water, screaming inside. The cold water swallowed me whole. For a split second, everything went silent. The shouting, the gasps, the chaos above, all muffled by the rush of water filling my ears. My dress, now soaked and heavy, tangled around my legs. I kicked instinctively, but panic clouded my thoughts. All I could think was, the baby. Jack. Please, not my baby. I thrashed upward, my arms pushing through the weight of my soaked clothes, but it felt like I was moving in slow motion. The pressure in my chest tightened. I needed air. I needed help. Above the surface, I could hear faint, muffled voices, then suddenly a scream cut through the noise. "Lena!" someone shouted. Oh my God, Lena. I saw hands moving at the edge of the pool. Two male guests jumped forward to help. And then, like a flash of light through the panic, I saw Ryan, diving into the pool without hesitation. His arms were around me in seconds. "I've got you," he whispered, breathless but steady. "You're okay. I've got you." He pulled me toward the edge of the pool as guests helped lift me out. Water streamed down my body as I collapsed on the ground, coughing and trembling. My dress clung to me like a second skin, and my hands immediately flew to my belly. "I don't know if he's okay," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Ryan, baby, you're going to be all right," he said, cradling me in his arms. "Just hold on." Frank stood nearby, frozen in shock. His eyes flicked between me, soaked and shaking, and Janet, who now stood motionless, her champagne glass still in hand, her face pale. But the most haunting part? Sophia. She stood a few steps behind her mother with her arms crossed and a slight smirk on her lips.
She didn't speak.
She didn't move. She just watched. And then something unexpected happened. Frank reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and dialed 911. His voice, though calm, carried weight. "This is Frank Harris. I need an ambulance and police at Riverside Cafe. My daughter, who is 7 months pregnant, has just been physically assaulted and pushed into a swimming pool by her mother." Gasps rose around the terrace. A few guests began crying quietly. Others stared in disbelief. "Janet," Frank said, turning to his wife, "you've finally gone too far." She opened her mouth, but he cut her off.
No.
"Not this time. Not anymore." Just minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance. The flashing red and blue lights painted the walls of the cafe. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, their voices calm but urgent as they helped lift me up and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. One of them pressed a stethoscope gently to my belly. "Heartbeat is present," he said. "We're taking you to the hospital now for full observation." Ryan rode with me in the ambulance, holding my hand the entire time. My head rested on his shoulder, and I stared at the ceiling above me, still numb. All I could whisper was, "She punched me, Ryan. She punched me. And the baby." "I know," he said, his voice low and full of fury. "She's going to pay for it. I swear to you, she's going to pay." Back at the venue, police officers handcuffed Janet right in front of the guests. "You're under arrest for assaulting a pregnant woman," the officer said. "You have the right to remain silent." Sophia, when questioned, tried to defend her mother. "It was just an accident," she insisted. "My mom was drunk. She didn't mean to hurt anyone." But one officer looked at her flatly. "Multiple guests saw you smiling after your sister was punched and fell into the pool. You're being investigated for complicity. Please cooperate." Sophia's smile faded instantly. And for the first time in my life, justice had begun. The hospital room was quiet except for the rhythmic beeping of the fetal monitor beside me. My hair was still damp, and my body ached from the impact, the shock, and the fear. But when I looked at the screen and saw the steady flicker of my baby boy's heartbeat, a small breath of relief escaped my lips. "He's okay," I whispered. Ryan, sitting at my bedside, reached for my hand and kissed it gently. "You both made it through. You're safe now, Lena." Tears welled in my eyes, not just from relief, but from years of buried pain finally breaking free. I thought I'd lose him, and she just stood there. My own mother. He didn't respond at first, just kept holding my hand. Then he said, "She crossed a line that can't be undone." There was a soft knock on the door. A moment later, it opened slowly, and Frank stepped inside. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a single afternoon. His shoulders were slumped, but his eyes were steady. "May I come in?" he asked. Ryan looked at me. I gave a small nod. Frank sat down quietly across from us. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then his voice came out low and cracked. "I'm sorry, Lena. I should have stopped her years ago. I should have protected you." I stayed quiet, watching the man who had once stood silently by while my mother chipped away at my confidence, my spirit. But now he looked different. Tired.
Honest.
I told the police everything, he said. About what she did. About how long it's been going on. Janet was taken into custody. They're keeping her overnight. She'll be in court tomorrow. The officers said there's enough to charge her with felony assault. Ryan straightened slightly. She deserves every bit of that charge. Frank nodded. I agree. And Lena, he hesitated. I've already started the process of filing for divorce. My eyes widened. I had never imagined those words coming from my father. I stood by too long. I pretended not to see. But today, I saw her push her own pregnant daughter into a pool after punching her in the stomach. And I saw Sophia doing nothing, smiling. Sophia? I whispered. What's happening to her? She's being questioned. They might not file charges, but a restraining order is possible. You have every right to ask for one. I looked down at my belly, resting my hands over it. Jack moved lightly inside, as if responding to the sound of my voice, my emotions. I want to protect him, I said softly. I can't let either of them near us ever again. Frank reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded paper. I met with a lawyer at the police station. I've already given my consent for restraining orders against both Janet and Sophia. And if you choose to take further legal action, I'll support it. I stared at the man who used to look the other way. Maybe guilt had woken something inside him. Maybe it was just too late to pretend anymore. Thank you, I said finally. He stood up and gave me a tired smile. I'll be back tomorrow for the hearing. Just focus on getting better. And that baby. As he left, I leaned back into the pillows, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. But beneath it, there was something else rising, strength I didn't know I had. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was going to fight back. 3 days later, I found myself walking into a quiet, beige courtroom with Ryan by my side. My steps were slower than usual, my body still recovering, but my heart beat steady with resolve. This wasn't just about justice. It was about setting a boundary for myself, for my son, and for the kind of future I wanted to protect. Janet sat at the defendant's table, dressed in plain gray slacks and a loose blouse. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. Gone was the proud, arrogant woman who had marched into my baby shower like it was her own event. She looked older, smaller, even vulnerable. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Sitting a few feet away from her was Sophia, arms folded tightly, eyes locked straight ahead. She wasn't smiling now. Frank sat behind us, his presence quiet but solid. He'd filed for divorce 2 days earlier and had already moved out of the family home. For the first time in my life, he had picked the truth over silence. The judge, a sharp woman with clear eyes and a steady tone, called the hearing to order. The prosecutor laid out the case. Assault on a pregnant woman. Reckless endangerment. Public disturbance at a private event. Then came witness testimony. Olivia spoke first, describing exactly what she saw, the punch, the fall, the way I struggled in the water. Then a guest confirmed that Sophia had smiled while I sank. Then it was my turn. As I took the stand, I felt Jack move lightly inside me, as if reminding me he was still there, strong, just like I needed to be. I was 7 months pregnant when my mother punched me in the stomach, I said, my voice clear. She was angry, drunk. But that wasn't the first time she tried to control or shame me. It was just the first time she showed the world who she really is. I paused. If it hadn't been for my husband, for the guests who pulled me out of the water, my baby might not have made it. And all because I wanted to celebrate the life I was bringing into this world. When I finished, I saw Janet lower her head, but I didn't care if her shame was real. It was too late. The judge turned to her. Do you have anything to say, Ms. Harris? Janet opened her mouth but said nothing. For once, she had no defense. The judge gave her ruling with no hesitation. 4 years in state prison, no chance of early parole. Mandatory anger management therapy. Restraining order enforced permanently. She was not to contact me or Jack in any form. Sophia was not charged criminally, but a civil restraining order was issued against her as well, effective immediately. As we walked out of the courtroom, Ryan wrapped his arm around me and whispered, "It's over." "No," I said quietly. "It's just beginning." 2 months passed in a blur of healing, reflection, and preparation. The bruises faded, but the memories didn't. I saw them in flashes, Janet's fist flying toward my belly, the cold water swallowing me whole, Sophia's smirk in the background. But those moments no longer held me hostage. I had taken back control. I had cut the cord that bound me to pain. And now, standing in the maternity ward, gripping Ryan's hand through a wave of contractions, I was ready to bring my son into the world. "It's almost time," the nurse said with a calm smile. "You're fully dilated, Lena. Just a few more pushes." Sweat beaded at my temples. My fingers tightened around Ryan's hand. He brushed my damp hair back and kissed my forehead. "You've got this. You're the strongest woman I've ever known." I took a breath, deep and full, and then I pushed. 10 minutes later, I heard the sound I had been waiting months to hear, my baby's cry. My heart exploded. "It's a boy," the doctor announced. "A healthy baby boy." They placed him on my chest, and for a moment the whole world disappeared. His skin was soft and warm, his tiny fingers curled tightly, his eyes squeezed shut as he wailed in protest at this strange, new place. I laughed through tears, touching his tiny cheek. "Hi, Jack," I whispered. "I'm your mom, and I've waited my whole life to meet you." Ryan leaned in, tears in his eyes.
Hey, little guy.
"We've got you now." The nurse took Jack to clean and wrap him, and Ryan stood protectively by. I lay back against the pillows, physically exhausted, but emotionally filled in a way I never knew was possible. We had survived. And now we had a new beginning. The sun spilled through the kitchen window of our new home, warming the hardwood floors as little Jack crawled clumsily toward the sliding glass doors that led out to the backyard. At 10 months old, he was already full of curiosity, chubby legs wobbling, soft giggles echoing in every corner of the house. "Come on, little explorer," I said, walking over and scooping him into my arms. His tiny hands reached for my necklace, and I laughed. "Nope, not food, buddy." Behind me, the smell of grilled vegetables drifted in from the patio. Ryan stood at the grill, flipping burgers and sipping lemonade. He wore a t-shirt with tiny baby handprints on it. Jack had decorated it this morning. "Food's almost ready," Ryan called, waving a spatula in the air like a proud dad. Life had changed. After the trial, we'd moved out of the city and into a quieter neighborhood where no one knew our past. The air here was calmer. The silence wasn't filled with tension. It was filled with birdsong, baby laughter, and late-night whispers under warm blankets. Frank, my father, visited us every few weeks. He had sold the old house and moved to Arizona, just like he'd planned. When he came, he always brought a carved wooden toy for Jack. His hands, once still and passive, now shaped animals, trains, and blocks. Gifts for the grandson he swore to protect. He was trying. In his own quiet way, he was making up for the years he lost. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Sophia. Her handwriting was the same. Controlled.
Neat.
Inside, she apologized. She said she regretted not stopping Mom, not doing more, not protecting me. But between the lines, I could feel something else, a familiar manipulation, a desire to step back into my life. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer without replying. Some doors stay closed for a reason. Jack began wiggling in my arms, and I took him outside to Ryan. We laid a soft blanket on the grass and sat together while Jack chewed on a teething ring and kicked at the breeze. Olivia joined us a few minutes later, holding a fruit tart and smiling wide. I brought dessert and baby snuggles.
We laughed.
She was more than a best friend now. She was family. As we sat in the sunlight, surrounded by people who chose me for who I am, not what I gave them or how I made them look, I realized something. I had broken the cycle. I would raise Jack with love, respect, and safety. I would never make him feel small just to make myself feel powerful. I looked over at Ryan, who reached out and placed his hand on mine. And I knew this was home. "Family," I said aloud, watching Jack roll onto his back, eyes fixed on the clouds. "Isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays." who lifts you up. Ryan squeezed my hand. And we'll make sure Jack always knows that. I smiled as the breeze danced through the grass, and Jack's soft laugh rang out like music. We were free, and we were finally whole. Thank you for watching this story. If you liked it, please like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful and emotional stories. Your support means a lot and helps us keep sharing real-life inspired content every week.